Look at me drop it down low. Look at me go. Look at me drop it down low.
And we're live.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Sales Top to Bottom with me, Keenan, your host, and the lovely Becc. Becc, how has Paris been? Have you met a boy?
It's been wonderful. I met lots of boys. What do you mean?
It's the city of love.
When you say hello, you meet a boy, technically.
It's the city of love. Have you met a boy?
Pass.
It's the city of love. Springtime in Paris. I mean, it's handmade.
I will say that the French. No. So I will say that the French culture has like 15 words for boyfriend or girlfriend.
15.
Like in the US, it's like, boyfriend, girlfriend, that's it. Married.
No, boyfriend, girlfriend, talking to each other, seeing each other, going out, steady. Nah, man, we got a lot.
Steady. That's the 40s. Look at men.
I didn't say it was new, but talking to
they have like 15 words. So they call the men in Paris smoothies because they know how to talk. At your average bystander, they do know how to, but I don't speak French, so
you call me Jamba Juice.
Okay, with that, we are going on to the first segment of this podcast.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Before you do the segment, don't do
What's
it.
Up?
Okay, everybody, listen. We know we missed last week. We apologize. We do. We apologize. Becc was celebrating her Paris leaving trip. She was having a go-away party. She was drunk, and she doesn't drink, but I can still say that. She was drunk on life, partying, etc. So she didn't make it. So I want everybody here who's listening right now, I want you to tag a name of somebody that should be listening to this podcast right now. Drop it in and tell them to pay attention.
I'll give you as a gift for missing last week the best line that I've heard. Best line that I've heard.
What's this best line?
Someone said in French, "Et Juliette est le soleil," which means, and Juliet is the sun. And I'm walking by, and then I understood. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Juliet is the sun that faces the rising moon.
I know, but to say that as a pickup line, I was like, damn, France.
Yeah, the mere fact that I could continue it, though, don't I get any credit for that?
Yes.
The amount of guys in America who's probably read Romeo and Juliet is probably.
I know. And it was just like a passing line. And I was like, dang, that's effective. Just from a line perspective, I was like, wow. So they know their poetry.
Well, anyways, we are now going on to the first segment of this podcast, which is Email Teardown.
On yon window breaks.
All right. Well, this is the segment where Keenan and Becc tear down emails and messages that were sent over to them. And so on to the first email. This one, the subject line is, The subject line is 10% of the cost of traditional staffing fees. Becc, and this is a small ad, so I apologize in advance, but Robot is pioneering passive talent, servicing the other 75% of the workforce who don't apply. Let us help you woo your ideal candidates and schedule the first interview. And this is under the heading, Hiring Passive Talent Just Got Easier. Best blank, whatever her name is, and then a huge photo of her. Becc, what are your thoughts on this one?
My first thoughts, if I was candid, is I think we've done this one.
Yeah, I think we have two.
I think this is an old one.
Oh, this is an old one. I'm sorry. I wasn't here for the last podcast that y'all were in. So let's go on to the next one. Let's see if the next one is still up. If not, I'll just bring up a separate email.
We all make mistakes.
The pressure now.
Me.
Is this the same one? Okay.
I guess it is. Well, let's see.
Well, how about let me pull up an email And
I don't even know if that. Wait, is that we did? I can't read it. Have we done that one, Becc, too? The other one?
Yeah, we have.
Oh man, we're off to a slow start today.
I know.
The audience is gonna get angry.
Wait. I think it's in podcast agenda 28, man.
28.
Right. Keenan, will you?
We're going way back. It's an
Oh,
archive.
we're going way back.
There was one time where I my computer shorted and I pushed Keenan on stage and basically just told him to tell jokes in the meantime. And he did, which was nice. So Keenan, you have a joke? Oh, give us your best joke in the meantime, Keenan. I'll give you a joke too.
I can't. I don't have any clean jokes anymore. I only get unclean jokes.
Did you know that? Here's my joke. And men, you can find it. I think it's 28. It's 2 emails to me. Did you know that if you clean a vacuum cleaner, you become a vacuum cleaner?
That's awful.
If you
I
clean
don't know what to say.
You become a vacuum cleaner.
Oh my
Pretty
goodness.
good.
No, that's like, you know, the whole park on a driveway and drive on a parkway and that all that. Oh, Becc, humor. All right. What is brown and in the woods? Don King asks us. What's brown?
Okay, so everyone, we're like tanking here. Like our first.
Okay, here's the first email that I was able to.
Oh, what's brown and in the woods?
Yes. Yes. I'm not taking the bait, Don King, but Doug King, but tell us what's brown and in the woods, baby.
Okay.
He'll come.
Yes.
Winnie's Pooh. Winnie's Pooh.
Okay, anyways, I found a message that was sent over to Becc.
Okay.
And I'm sorry I don't have the nice visual with it, but please forgive me. It says, "Hi Becc, hope all is well. I wanted to give you an update. I'm now doing sales consulting for growing SaaS firms in 2 main areas. 1, helping sales teams drive outbound pipe generation, increases leads and booked meetings. 2, coaching AEs on how to win their active enterprise deals, increase win rates, and ARR/deal. I implement and teach methods my teams have used to win many enterprise accounts. Would this be helpful to you?" Becc, what do you think about this message over?
I think that she's a competitor and she's trying to sell me on her competitive services. That's all I have to say.
What about you, Keenan? What do you think about this this message?
Also a competitor to you, Keenan.
I think she's right. I mean, if we want to go deeper, she doesn't understand who she's sending it to. I get this stuff all the time. People reach out to me all the time. They're going to help my sales team, help my sales this, help my sales that. I'm just like, I don't know what to say to you, dog. I mean, I'm not going to pay someone for the services that I provide myself. So I'm not quite sure what to help you. So I think the answer to this is people need to do a much, much better job at understanding who they're targeting and why they're targeting those people.
Well,
and if that means you
go ahead, keep going. Sorry. Keep going.
If that means you got to spend more time working your lists and developing your lists, so be it. Work and develop your lists. But I just don't think people think about who they're sending them to.
So the other thing was she mentioned that she works with SaaS companies. And I'm like, so even from a list cleaning perspective, if you were to hybrid a list off of LinkedIn, I'm listed as a think tank, you know? So I'm like, I'm not a SaaS company.
You're a think tank.
I'm a think tank.
Are there any fish in that tank?
No.
Okay. So, you know, no.
What?
So what, without having to find another one,
I actually do have another one if y'all are ready.
Oh, go. Let's roll, man.
All right, let's roll. Let's roll. This one is also to Becc, and it says, "Hi, Becc. Did you know that skills, not just a degree or pedigree, are becoming more important to identify qualified talent? With more than 45% of hirers on LinkedIn explicitly using skills data to fill their roles, you can be sure that the candidates you receive through LinkedIn Jobs are the right fit for your needs. Are you interested in working through how you can create a job posting on LinkedIn?" Keenan, what are your thoughts on this message?
Did LinkedIn send that?
No, this is from what I get, it's someone who consults.
That's fine. All right, that's fine. So here's the first thing, right? I don't understand why Becc keeps getting all these recruiting emails. I don't understand. Like, Becc, if I'm you, I'd want to go out in the real world and see what's going on, because too many people send you recruiting emails. That's one that I don't get. Number two, this person doesn't address any type of problem. And like the other ones I should have said, but I didn't. They're all too focused on what they think they can deliver. You know, like it's all about, I can get you this. And this one, it's a skills one. I can get you good candidates by using skill-based something or other. Well, why in the world would Becc need skill-based something other in the first place? So if you want a recruiting email to be a good recruiting email, it probably needs to say something like, are you losing placements because your candidates can't compete with the competition? So if you're a recruiting company, if you're an internal, are you losing candidates to the competition? Are you finding candidates, you hire candidates that end up leaving within 12 months because they weren't the right hire, right? Like, start with some real problems that they could be having from a recruiting perspective, then explain to me that the reason I could be losing it is because it's not skills-based, or explain to me the reason I could be losing is because I didn't understand the qualifications better, blah, 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 and then say how you solve that problem. But if you can't start with a problem, it's just a waste of my time or anybody's time.
What about you, Becc? What do you think about this message?
Well, I mean, to Keenan's point, I'm not hiring. I haven't been for I haven't ever been. What I don't understand from the trigger perspective is if you were to go to my LinkedIn, it actually says that I have 5 employees, like random people that tag that they work at Flip the Script. And so I send them very sweet messages being like, take this shit down, basically. Like, I was like, I'm going to sue you. One guy was like, I'm really sorry. I work for a bakery called Flip the Script and I just got confused. I was like, never mind. Just keep me.
All right.
Boy, but technically, I said I was spotless in Paris. Technically, I still am.
Because you're in San Francisco now. Oh, you know what? Technicality, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
Let it pass. I'm getting a lot of emails, cold emails in French now.
Ooh la la.
From the trigger. They're like, oh, space in Paris.
Très bien. Très bien.
And they're prospecting emails about outbound prospecting meetings in French. I'm like,
they're like, oh, she just moved here 2 months ago. She must be fluent. Well, anyways, we're on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Sales Mythology.
This is the segment where Becc and Keenan demystify common myths in the sales industry. So the first myth of today is the worst thing that happens to a buyer when you don't run good discovery is they get bored or irritated. Becc, what are your thoughts on this sales myth?
Yeah. While I'll agree that is something that can happen to them, the worst thing that happens to your buyer in a not good discovery is that you don't uncover that they've misdiagnosed something or that they've missed a diagnosis, entirely. So discovery is meant to discover what a true diagnosis is, And I saw this actually in a clip. I take it hard on the influencers because I should, honestly. It's our job, ethically, to lead people in the right direction. I saw someone say, yeah, if you ask bad questions in a discovery, the worst thing or what can happen is they get bored, or worst case scenario, they get irritated. And I'm like, maybe on the emotional side for sure, but like your discovery process should be truly to help your buyer, and it should be to correct your buyer into not making mistakes that they would have made and run into problems they would have run into if they didn't know the information you had uncovered and that you presented to them, in the next meeting. So I think this shows me as the litmus test, like from the high level, that most sellers, most influencers, are still to this day not after helping your buyer at all. It's just helping them to close more effectively is the only thing that we're after in the room. It's kind of a downer. Keenan, what do you think?
Yeah, no. I think the worst thing that's a myth. I mean, I think it's a thing and it happens and it's not good. But I think the worst thing is that they buy the wrong product or they don't buy the right product. So they don't do anything and they should have done something, or they do something and they shouldn't have done something, or they bought the wrong product. They did something they should have, but they bought the wrong product or solution. That's really the biggest problem. And Becc, you're going to be so excited, Becc, like so excited with what I'm about to drop. Well, I don't know about drop because I got to figure out what I do with it. But what I'm doing right now, and it's germane to this question, I'm doing a massive research project of buyers. We're serving over 1,000 buyers across all functional groups, and we just got the first little taste of the results. So in chunks, and you know what? One of the more interesting things that jumped out at me. One of the questions we asked was, have you ever started the sales process without fully understanding and scoping the problem? 30% said yes. 30. Just under 1/3 of all people start the buying process without understanding the problem. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, then if you and the salesperson don't start to figure out the problem pretty fucking quick, you're going to buy the wrong thing, or you're not going to make the right choice or the right decision. That's the worst thing that can happen, hands down.
All right. So the next myth of today is
data.
The next myth of today is the longer I've been in sales, the more of an expert it means that I am at selling. Keenan, what do you think about this?
What I think is, don't ever confuse experience with expertise, ever. Ever. Do not confuse experience with expertise. The only thing time gets you is more time. You may learn a few more things, but in no way, shape, or form does it make you an expert. An expert comes from actually challenging things, processing things, paying attention, cataloging in your mind what worked and what didn't work, why it worked and why it didn't work, learning new things about the industry or space you're in that you didn't know, bringing new things to the space that that didn't exist beforehand, etc. No, don't ever confuse experience with expertise.
What about you, Becc? What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
To be an expert in anything, you have to spend 10,000 hours in it. Like that's the race that you're after. Can y'all hear that siren?
Oh yeah.
San Francisco's a great city.
It's gone.
So the race is to 10,000 hours. And so I agree with Keenan's point of like, if you spend 20 years in something, clearly you have more hours available. But I see sellers in general, and I don't know how to feel about it at this point, but bereft of a hunger to learn and to learn about their buyer. Like there's a hunger in some cases to learn like the new objection handling technique or the new cold calling thing and the new, pattern interrupt or whatever. But I never see a true hunger for people to learn about their actual buyer. I very rarely come across it. So I think that there's an unbelievable expertise. Experience just means you have repetitively done something. So a lot of times it means you've repetitively done something incorrectly or ineffectively. But it convinces, sellers in their head, they're like, because I've done this so much, this is the most effective way to do it, because they don't essentially, know any better. But I think it actually issues in a lot of deleterious things of like an ego, an understanding of something, then it's hard to get them to pivot. But no, I don't think that they equal each other at all. And I really wish not to get, whatever, biblical on everyone. I hope that I wake up tomorrow and people.
I hope you do too.
I hope I wake up tomorrow, and that people want to learn about their buyer.
Yeah, good luck with that.
That they want to learn. I can't tell you the amount of, again, not with the influencers I've heard say like, oh, well, I don't read books. I just fly by the seat of my pants. I'm like, that's not a trophy or an award or a brag. That's showing that you have no education on the topic that you're talking on. And what's worse is you don't give a shit. Like you give a shit on whether you learn about this. So my my desire for the community is that people start to learn about their buyer so they can help their buyer. So we can truly actually pivot into a position that's valuable is after their own good. So it's like, do what you have to do. Go read books, Google things, Google KPIs that they're after, go to webinars that they attend, but just start to learn about your buyer so you can help people in the room more effectively, other than just being wasted space and pressure for them to close.
All right. And the last sales myth of today is coaching and training are the same things. Becc, what are your thoughts on this one?
They're not. They get confused a lot. From my view, and then I'm interested to hear Keenan's take. I'm going to go 5 seconds on this. Training is teaching someone how to do something. Coaching is identifying where they're not being effective at it, telling them what they're doing, and helping them change to do the most effective thing. So they can be done simultaneously, but usually training comes first, and then the coaching comes in before the mess up. Keenan, what do you think?
No, you nailed it. Training is introducing new concepts, ideas that someone was unaware of. It's introducing them. It's explaining why those are important, the value they have in those, what steps you need to do them. Then the coaching is the support you give them and actually applying or executing on the new lesson, the new skill, the new whatever. So you train on a skill, then you coach on executing the skill. So training is introduction, coaching is execution.
Yeah.
How's that?
It's great.
Good. Hey, since we have more time, how about a bonus sales myth? Sales myth number 4, AEs by and large are experts at discovery. Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
No. I can't believe that came up with it. You guys, I feel set up because I have been pondering a post, but I haven't been able to figure out how to write it yet. Because this is the largest problem in sales today, and nobody can accept it. Everybody thinks they're good everybody thinks they do good discovery. Management thinks they do good discovery. Everybody's running around talking about how great they are at discovery. Now people are starting to realize that the buyers don't think it's good discovery. So rather than blame the salesperson, they're blaming discovery fatigue and blaming the buyer for getting discovery fatigue. When it comes down to the simple fact that salespeople absolutely have no clue on how to do discovery. And I have watched countless, and I mean countless, discoveries via Gong, Chorus, Coach 360 from my clients, and I love them to death, and they're trying. They're better than everybody else, but people are terrible at it. Terrible. Sorry, Becc, but I took all your time.
You were set up. I was like, he'll like this one.
It's guys, seriously, like this. I honestly believe in my heart of hearts, and I'm still trying to figure out how to convey this to the sales world because they don't get it. They just don't get it. That the reason sales conversion rates are as low as they are and the reason we're not doing as well is twofold. One, the sales team is a horrible discovery. And 2, there is no real clear, in most organizations there isn't gap selling, clear definition of what a good quality opportunity looks like, which then transfers or translates into horrible deal management because the managers do not know how to assess a good deal. So when they don't know how to assess a good deal, deals move forward all the way to the end that shouldn't be there in the first place. They're forecasted and they don't close and everybody's fucking surprised what the hell happened. That the whole process from discovery on is a shit show and nobody recognizes it. Nobody recognizes it.
Oh my goodness. Dropping bombs here today. Okay, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
Take it or leave it.
This is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Keenan and Becc let us know whether they would take it or leave it. So the first one of today is following up with prospects who downloaded content to book a meeting. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Oh, take it all day long. Take it. If you're smart, it's intent data, right? So if you built these things properly, then it should give you the intent of what's going on in their world, right? I know that probably wasn't the right word, but yes, all day long, intent data. Yes.
All right, what about you, Becc? Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it. I think it comes down to execution. It's not executed properly, in my opinion. Most people will be like, follow up with them right away and then ask them like, hey, do you have any questions about the content? They're like, no, I didn't even read it. And then they're like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
bye.
Yeah.
The call ends. That's how but I'm going to take it from a high level. But yes, I think the approach needs to be gutted.
Yeah. And then to Beck's point, because Becc did a brilliant job of calling out what not to do. What you do is you bring up the intent behind the content. So if someone downloads, I'm making this up, 10 reasons how to do better management, then you get them on the call, you follow up and say, hey, listen, I know she downloaded it. Are you guys struggling with certain challenges in management right now? Are you looking at ways to improve your management? Like, you just lean in on the intent behind it and get them talking about that. It's kind of hard from that, right? If I literally download an ebook, how to build dollhouses, unless I did it by accident, it's kind of hard for me to hide. It's like, yeah, either a friend wanted to do it, I'm looking to do it, my daughter wanted to do it, but there's something going on in my life and I just showed it to you. So just lean right in on that.
And the last take it or leave it for today is setting an agenda at the start of a discovery. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Oh, man. Okay. Okay. For the average general population, I'm going to take it. Okay. Setting the expectation with the buyer, letting them know what you're going to show and why, recapping what was in the discovery. Based on the discovery, we heard the following. Boom, boom, boom. So therefore, the agenda is going to address these things. Boom, 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 boom. Right? So, yes. But the reason I'm flibbering and flabbering is I don't do it. I do it on the fly. Right? So I don't, what does that say? Do as I say, not as I do. So yeah, I'm gonna take it.
Okay, Becc, what are your thoughts on this one? Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna take it. I think people are 2 to 3x more scared of something they don't know versus like they're not sure about versus something that they do know about but is negative. So I think that there's a lot of anxiety and ambiguity. So I would definitely set an agenda, but I think if I had to guess why Keenan's uneasy, it's because most people see it as like a tactic or a technique to close people. Like that's like their horse that they're backing their cart to. So I think definitely set an agenda to give them an overview of what's going to actually happen within the meeting, just so they feel safe, they feel comfortable. You give them an outline, but it should never be a technique. Essentially, it should just be a part of any meeting, in my opinion.
And I guess my follow-up question, since we're all out of take it or leave it, my follow-up question is, what type of salespeople would going on the fly instead of setting agenda work? Obviously Keenan type salespeople, but what specifically in those people make it so it's like, oh, you shouldn't do an agenda, but it's better for you to do it on the fly?
I think it's just people who are really quick on their feet, right? They hold the information in their head well, and they know what's going to happen when they get on the call, and they're attaching it to what they to discovery, and they have all of that knowledge in their head, then they can fly. But that's not everybody, I mean, most people aren't that organized in their head, or can't recall information that well and can't work that well on the fly. So, you're better safe than sorry.
Here's another take it or leave it. Sending a list and a breakup email of why the buyer isn't responding and asking them to choose. Keenan, take it or leave it. Like you're either off on an island somewhere, you don't care about data, you want me to leave you alone. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, no, leave it. Leave it. Now you said a list. Oh, we're gonna get buzzed.
Yeah, you're gonna get buzzed. But Keenan, go on. Carry on.
Keep going.
You said a list. I would use a gap selling list. So, hey, I haven't heard from you back. However, I'm confused. You said in our discovery that you're losing this much money. The impact to customers is this. You're concerned you're not going to get your next tranche of funding, blah, blah, blah. You said the reason all this was going on was because of boom, 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 boom. I'm confused, surprised, or concerned. I haven't heard from you, understanding that the timeline was such. Have you solved the problem? Have you gone another route? And if so, no problem. But if not, I'd love to get this back on track. So so the following doesn't, whatever the closing is. That's a list.
There we go. Well, with that, we are going on to the next segment of this podcast, my personal favorite segment of this podcast, which is
The inbox.
Inbox.
this is the segment where Keenan and Becc answer questions from our audience. And after a way too long hiatus, we have our very welcome special guest, the trusty mailbox. And let's see what type of messages come out of this one. The first one is from Shahryar Sultan, no location. Any suggestions on the best way to start a cold call? Becc, why don't you start us on this one?
I'd say two things that I usually, I'm going to say three things, then kick to Keenan. The first one is I start with a question. Hey, it's Becc calling on recorder line with Flip the Script. How have you been? And how they respond, you should take that into account. Like if they say like, where'd you get my number? Don't sprint through it. Like they're mad. Don't be like Zoom info. The reason for my outreach is, and that's what I hear reps do. And I'm like, Brendan, you're cooked. Like you have to stop there. So my first tip is to start with a question. Second tip is to go into personalization. Give them a blip of personalization. Prove to them that you know who they are, so it gains credibility right off the bat. I was on your LinkedIn earlier. I saw this article that you wrote. Love this line where you said blah, blah. So I was curious to know if you've come across Flip the Script before. That's usually my opener. So I don't do permission-based openers. I use personalization kind of as a pattern interrupt, to kind of gain that credibility. But those are my first three steps right off the bat is ask them how they've been. If they give you an emotional response, you have to react accordingly. But if they just say like, good, I'm good, I'd be like, good, glad to hear that. Reason for my outreach is, and go into a personalization bit and ask them if they've come across your company before. That's usually my opener.
What about you, Keenan? What are your thoughts on this one?
I'm a big fan of permission-based. Big fan. So, hey, this is Keenan with ASG. I know I'm interrupting you. Can I get 30 seconds to tell you why I called? Right? I love that because if they say no, I can either extend or truth of the matter is they almost never say no. Truth of the matter is in that first piece, they almost never say no. And if they do, to her point where they're mad, just let them go. You're not wasting time. But when they do say yes, now they are completely disarmed. They've given you permission to come in. And so what you do after this is the most important piece. I like to lead with problems, right? So you say, as I said, I'm with ASG. We help people who are struggling with long sales cycles, poor forecasting, the salespeople negotiating poorly. I'm making them all up, right? Because I will interweave these. It's important. I'll interweave these based on what I think are most people responding to. Losing to the status quo, deals that you thought you were going to win, you lose for no reason, etc. I'll put 3 or 4 of those in. And we work with them who are struggling with those problems, blah, blah, blah. Are you experiencing any of those problems? And if so, I'd love 30 minutes in the next week or two to walk through how we help people solve those. So now they're faced with, do I say, yes, I'm having those problems, or do I say no? And if I am having those problems and I say no, too many people can't do that in their head because they're like, maybe he really could help me. So if I say no, I'm an idiot because it would be nice to fix. And if he does say yes, then I just have to make him feel comfortable that I can address them and I can't do a whole what you want. Now, what happens a lot of times is say, well, tell me now. And then what I'll say is like, I can tell you what we do, and I give a 2-second thing. And I say, however, what's really important is I'd want to understand which of those problems are you having? And can we talk more about that? And that's what I'd like to do because I know I just interrupted you. If you have the 30 minutes or 15 minutes, I'll take it now. But right, and you almost defer. So I'm not trying to push you. Like there's more here than just selling you stuff, and they get disarmed again. So that's how I do it.
All right, the next question of today, and this one's a little bit of a long one, so please.
You only have a minute, man.
100%. I'll cut it short. I've been in AE for 4 years and still feel nervous and uncomfortable during discoveries and demo meetings. I talk to a lot of older male executives as buyers, which to a woman like me can be very intimidating. How can I keep the nerves down, put my best foot forward, and nail those meetings? Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Should have given it to Becc. She's a woman.
Yeah.
Becc.
All right, giving it straight to Becc.
Outlearn them. If you learn more than them, they'll increase your confidence. So if I know a lot more than the average rep, the confidence grows with that. So my biggest tip would be to learn as much about your craft as you absolutely can, and to relinquish the chains of trying to manipulate someone and ask questions to diagnose. I will say that people say, they ask me a lot, they're like, you seem really confident on stage. And I'm like, well, I'm an introvert. I don't love, like, if you look at me classically as a speaker, I actually, like, if there were 10 pillars of good speaking, I probably miss all 10 of them. But it's the material that I'm like, whatever material I'm presenting, I like am at that point. You know, I spent a lot of time. And so the confidence immediately, you know, I noticed it in the beginning when I first started speaking, it'd be like 30 seconds and I was nervous. But then I'm like, oh, it's just explaining this concept. And then everything was fine after that. So I just outlearn them, outlearn everyone.
All right. And with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The challenge.
This is the segment where Keenan and Becc break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And the challenge for today is how to overcome imposter syndrome as an AE or SDR. Keenan, why don't you start us off with this one?
I have no fucking idea. Like, literally, I have no idea how you would overcome imposter syndrome. Now, I'm sure there's something out there. Now I want to go read it. So I'm pretty sure Beck's going to give us a nice long dissertation because she's read about this. But by my understanding and definition of imposter syndrome is the fact that you think you're an imposter and you don't think as good as you really are. Sort of the opposite of a Dunning-Kruger, right? Well, in spite of how much you know, you have imposter syndrome. So my natural inclination will learn more. Well, that's not going to solve it because I may be the smartest guy in the world and I still have imposter syndrome. So that is way above my pay grade. I would have no idea how to address that. Here, watch this. I'm putting my gap selling thinking brain on. All I keep thinking is, well, what causes it? That's all I keep thinking right now, what causes it? What causes it? What causes it? So now I'm going into, is it childhood issues? Is it, I think mine comes from, because I have massive imposter syndrome, massive. I think mine comes from my high school teachers and the adults in my life when I was younger, continually telling me I'm a fuck up and I'm an idiot and blah, blah, blah. So, but I don't know. It may have nothing to do with that, right? So I have no idea what causes it. So if I don't know what causes it, I can't tell you guys how to solve it. So Becc, take it away. I'm ready to learn.
Well, I have a question, then I'll take it from there. But when you're teaching skiing to others, like, when they're just starting, do you feel like an imposter then?
No.
Why not? Why not?
Well, twofold, because, and I don't feel like an imposter when I train gap selling either. Mm-hmm. So the concept of training someone who's in front of me and I can assess their capabilities, and I literally just skied up to them and I can look around the mountain and I could go all day and maybe see nobody that skis as well as me, or one person. Like, I have the constant reinforcement that I know what I'm doing and I'm good. Mm-hmm. For me, imposter syndrome comes in when I think about the book, or I think about the size of the company I've built, or the fact we just crossed 100,000 books sold, or I have universities calling me and asking me if they can use gap selling in their trainings. Like, I didn't write that book. You know what I'm saying? Like, obviously I wrote it, but in my head, it's like, how did I write a book that's this popular? I'm not that smart. I'm not that good. You know what I'm saying? That's where it comes in.
My biggest tip, and there's a lot of stuff out there. It's weird that it kind of into the last question, but there's a lot of stuff out there where people will be like, oh, just be more confident, and everyone's an imposter around you and everyone feels that way. And I'm like, I don't wish that upon them. Like, I don't like that they're also feeling that too.
Yeah.
The biggest way to fight it, it's going to be really bad, but I've been spicy the whole podcast. I'm sick. Is to become, what helps me is to become less of an imposter. Become less of an imposter. Like, learn about your actual craft. So to your point, the reason you don't feel like an imposter when you're skiing is you're like, I can out ski these guys like 15-fold, 20-fold, 25-fold. So you don't have to go to any like lectures or webinars on how to not feel like an imposter, because you're like, I'm not. I'm, you know, I'm stronger than these people around me. So I think that they could learn something from me. And you're correct. And like when you're talking about gap selling, it's like same thing. So I believe that this is gonna be bad, but I'm just gonna say it. I believe that imposter syndrome and a lot of facets is your body's way of telling you that you feel like you don't know enough. And I think that that can be a good thing in a lot of pretenses, like meaning it can drive of like, okay, I want to feel like less an imposter. So I'm like, if you have 1 hour and you could go to a workshop on how to have more self-confidence, or you could take that hour to like learn about the subject material of whatever it is. And it's like, I would take my hour and learn about the subject material of whatever it is, just so I felt more confident in the room. That's how I overcome it, you know?
Okay. I mean, so I think at a micro level, I can get behind that, right? But at a macro level, I'm going to keep saying this. I don't understand what causes it. So at a macro level, because I envision imposter syndrome at a macro level. So I envision imposter syndrome is, let's say, someone gets elected president. Okay. You got elected president. You passed all the policies in the past, et cetera. But they're like, how did I get here? Like, seriously? Like, I'm not president material. Like, yeah, I'm smart and I know shit and I've done good things, but this is a whole new level, right? Like this whole idea, or a guy or girl who starts a company and after 25 years, that company is like a Patagonia, I'm making shit up. And the person like, how did this happen? Like, I'm not this good and I'm sitting on top of a multi-billion, like you can't learn yourself into not that. Like that's a different layer. You can't learn yourself into that.
Well, in the instance, I think it's a really, really interesting discussion, but in the instance of like Patagonia, let's say you become a CEO and like you had the one hit. I think that imposter syndrome is valid. They haven't been a CEO before. They don't know what it's like to be a CEO.
No, they built it. They didn't become the CEO. They built it from scratch. And they're like, how did I get it? That's the imposter syndrome. Keep going.
I don't see that usually. I see someone, they like become a CEO and the thing takes off and they're like, I'm not a real CEO. And I'm like, well, that's correct. You haven't really built companies before. So in that, my biggest push is instead of freaking out, to just take that and channel it towards CEO lessons, like figure out what are the principles of EBITDA, like how could I like look after growth in my market or market share, like et cetera, like what are the basic foundations and principles and KPIs that I should be after looking at what is the stage, you know, A company, B company, C company, post funding, blah, blah. So I think in a lot of cases it's helped me because it shined a light. Been like, you don't feel like you know enough in this area, you know, but if you're in the regard that you're bringing it up of like you built something and then you're like, oh, I don't feel like I did this.
Yeah, like I do with my book all the time. Mm-hmm.
That one I think is psychological. That one's a different warfare, but in a lot of cases.
But it's still part of it because Greg Christensen, imposter syndrome, simply put, is doubt. It creeps in and shows up regardless of your knowledge, expertise, and confidence. So he's arguing that it has nothing to do with what you know, and it's a sense of doubt. So you know what we should do? We should both go research this and see what causes it because we're both swinging from the vines right now.
I mean, well, from imposter syndrome, I can only tell you how I overcame it because I did have imposter syndrome for a very long time. And what changed for me was, this is going to sound bad, but I'm like, I'm not a speaker. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not someone that people should listen to until, this is going to sound really bad, but I saw someone else speak and I'm like, I know more than them and they're just fine. They're not drowning on stage. They're totally fine. Everyone's high-fiving them. So I'm like, I took that as a lot of confidence. And then I just learn some different things. I don't know. That's how I overcame.
Okay, so this is good. This is good. So a couple of people said some things. So Leslie, don't be mad at me, Leslie. Shamion, I don't know, I-O-N, Shamion. Sorry, Leslie. Leslie says, isn't that humility? Brendan Shue says, do you believe imposter syndrome can be alleviated by changing your role within the conversation to a learner role than an expertise? Obviously, there is context to this. And then Matt Fogarty said, I think you can address imposter syndrome by looking inward. I think it comes from insecurity. So I think there's a crossover from a lot of that. and as I was processing this conversation, I think mine, and I think mine probably is a lot more psychological. Mine comes from the idea that people are accepting what I'm putting out, right? So the idea that I wrote this book and 100,000 people have bought it, and people all over the world are saying great things about it. I thought I had smart ideas. I knew a lot about sales, but I didn't ever think when I wrote that book that it would be this powerful and have this much impact in this world of sales, right? And so it's how we look at ourselves compared to other people. In some areas, this is going to sound stupid and pretty lack of humility, but from an athletic perspective, I never became a world-class athlete, but I never had insecurity or imposter about my ability to be athletic, even for my age, right? Mm-hmm. But I never saw myself as an academic. So to start getting all these awards and recognition for being an academic, whoa, hey, I could write a book, but I can't write a book that's going to be a bestseller, right? I can help. So I think it could be a lot of how we view ourselves, and then how that translates into how the world perceives us. And if they don't align, that could create imposter syndrome.
All right, 5 seconds early, but.
He's like,
I know.
Yeah, he looked like he's with his buddies. Hold on, boys. I got one.
Oh, yeah. Don't you worry. I will not be putting that horn on with a second left. I swear to God. Well, before we end this podcast, we have just one more thing.
Oh, listen, just one more thing.
All right, perfect. This is the last segment of our podcast where Becc and Keenan share with us what's on their minds and give us their closing thoughts. So first, let's start with Keenan. What is your just one more thing?
It's going to be an extension of the trigger that you triggered me earlier today, and that we need more humility in sales and sales leadership. I'm going to pick 60s as the dawn of modern selling. Okay. We could debate it, but I'm going to go with the 60s, dawn of modern selling. And we have been pushing this rock down this road that has looked pretty similar. And we've just sort of made a few changes on the outside, and we've kind of and it's all been sort of the same. And now we're here, and everybody still thinks it's germane. Everybody thinks it's relevant, and they're all interpreting things in the same manner that says, oh, look, I just got to create these tweaks. Like I just saw someone come out the other day with a book on closing. We're still talking about closing. Closing should not be something you try to teach people. That there's no closing should ever happen again. It's 2023, but people just aren't grasping it. They're just not grasping how poorly we sell, and they can't get out of their own way. And they're unwilling to set back and evaluate, what are we doing here? What are our motives? What am I teaching these people? What is the underlying thesis or premise for what I'm teaching them? And it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And I'm going to transition this to Becc, but I'd love her to answer my question. But I was thinking this the other day. If you ask me, what is the underlying premise or thesis or the basis, whatever you want to call it, for the gap selling principles, I can give you one. It's really simple. It's that people do not buy anything unless their current state is untenable, intolerable, and that sales is all about change, influencing change. You cannot get someone to change if their current state is not intolerable or untenable, period. And therefore, it's a salesperson's job to influence that change. That is the thesis. That's the basis of gap selling. Humans don't change until they have to. Okay? Now, I challenge you, and that's what I'm going to lead it to you, Becc. What is the thesis to Medic? What's the thesis or underlying argument to to Sandler, or the underlying argument to solution selling? Like, what is it? What is it? Because I've never heard it. So what we do is we just have these ideas on how to drive a transaction that have built on each other, like cities over, 100 AD, 500 AD, and we just keep building on these cities and don't ever change anything. So we have to stop and take a look. We have to stop and take a look at what the fuck are we doing? Because it ain't working. It ain't working. But no one to do it. We don't have the humility to do it.
What about you, Becc? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. So I might do an extension from what he was saying. But I watch a lot of Bill James. He's one of my favorite content creators. People who don't know him, he started the Society of American Baseball Research, later known as Sabermetrics. Billy Beane piggybacked off a lot of his work, made movie Moneyball based on it. But he's really insightful, really, really insightful. And one of the things that he said in one of his interviews once was that there is a point where ultimate humility and ultimate arrogance meet. That to learn anything takes humility, because it takes a recognition that you don't know something and then a desire to do something about that. So you can't have a desire to learn about something if you don't know that you don't know something. Mm-hmm. But once you put in all that time to study, he said it meets with arrogance, because you now say, and very rightfully so, I look at this problem that hundreds of thousands of other people are looking at the same problem across the world, but I look at it differently.
Yep.
But the reason that you do that is because you've done all of that studying and you've had all of that humility the entire time. So the thing that, even though we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, the thing that's really on my heart is there needs to be a desire to learn in sales that I do not see a desire to learn to help your buyer. I see a lot of talk about having empathy and being kind and being compassionate and being human and all that shit. And I'm like, hey, that's great. But if you really were kind, you would learn more about your buyer's world so you could actually help them and not missell something. And so actually now I just kind of think you're a big phony and I'm going to like mentally tune out. So I'm like, how you really are empathetic is you understand them to the definition. How you're really kind to someone is you possess a capability that can help them. And how you do all of that is by learning about their world. So I'm like, yeah, I'll close with this. Bill James also said, there's a bunch of people asking him basically why they didn't have new topics to talk about. And he was like, well, it's because you view the world in terms of things that you already know. He said, I view the world in terms of things that I don't know. And that's a huge world. So I ultimately have all of these questions and thesis and things that I'm going to try and find out, because that's how I view the world. And so I'm like, I want to challenge people to look at the world of sales and look at the world of their buyers and ask yourself the devastatingly, like, you know, surfacing question of, how much do you believe at this point that you don't know about your buyer and your buyer's world? Their indicators, their metrics, their problems, their root causes. And if that amount is any amount over 0, then to start learning today about their world so that you can truly help them. That's my one last thing.
Well, that's the podcast.
That's it.
Beautiful.
Bill James is
done. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Bill James is good. Thank you very much. You've been listening to the Sales Top to Bottom podcast. I'm your host, Keenan.
And I'm Becc. See you next week.